Hello, everybody. Happy 2014. This is Paul Elam with a Voice for Men, and welcome to the New Year's Day Hangout, where we're going to be discussing all kinds of great things. I'm sitting here with the absolute patriarch of evil, John Hembling. Please say hi to everybody, John.
Hi to everybody, John.
Thank you very much for saying precisely what I asked you to. And we also have Our Lady of the Labia Traitors, none other than Karen Straughan, a.k.a. Girl Writes What. You want to say hi to everybody, Karen?
Hi to everybody, Karen.
God, we're all being very compliant this morning. I think it's probably based on the fact that we're all hungover.
Oh, my God.
Is it that bad?
Oh, it's bad. It's not good. It's not good.
I'm not hungover. I don't know why you guys are hungover.
Yeah.
That's because you have no friends, and so you didn't party. That's probably why.
Man, look at that. It took her, what, 2 seconds to come up with a shame trip.
Well,
anyway.
I don't have any friends either, so we just stayed home, but I still celebrated, so overly much. So.
Johnny Walker's a good friend of mine. Anyway, we're going to talk about 2014, I guess. We really haven't planned a whole lot, but there's all kinds of juicy stuff to talk about. I want to start out with something, though. And recently, Men's Rights Edmonton, Nick Redding did a video about the Occidental matter, the rape forum, the report anybody for raping anybody else anonymously forum, that they have posted to their website, and there's a video about that that involves a particular individual there, and I want to ask Karen maybe to explain to everybody so we can let them know why we're going to be filling that form out as much as possible this year.
Well, I think maybe Nick Redding he got this feeling from watching Karen Smith of Sexual Assault Services of Edmonton on the news, listening to her talk about, how when you report a rape, people are probing the most intimate parts of your body, and she just seemed kind of turned on. So we suspect that she's actually a rapist. And so if anybody out there has been hurt by Karen Smith of Sexual Assault Services of Edmonton, we have an anonymous form. Very similar to the Occidental College form, and you can go there and report what happened to you, what she did to you. And so, yeah, I would encourage anybody who has been hurt by Karen Smith to do that.
Well, so I think we should actually, I just need to interject here, that Karen Smith, when she was challenged or asked last year about false allegations, being the head of a domestic violence shelter organization, and thus an expert, said that with respect to false allegations that
they just don't happen.
Doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen. So we know that anybody reporting her is obviously telling the truth.
Yeah.
Thus, we don't need any due process, and that's why the form is anonymous.
There you go.
There's another dimension to this too, and I hate to bring this up, but it's something that people have been silent about for too long. I've done some investigating, and I have looked into a number of cases where people have reported alien abductions, where they were prodded and poked and had different orifices in their body explored by aliens in a spaceship. And a common theme among these is that it turns out in most of these cases it was actually Karen Smith. It wasn't aliens.
Yeah. Definitely. I think you're absolutely right. And so if we could just have everybody who's been harmed by Karen Smith to just come forward, be brave.
Do we have a link? Can we tell people a link to go to fill out this form?
I know that Nick provided a link in the low bar of his video, and that is on Men's Rights Edmonton's YouTube channel. And I'm sure that they've got a link up on their website, mensrightsedmonton.com. So.
And folks, if you belong to any, third close encounters forums, alien abduction forums and stuff, please post a link to that video there. We don't know how many alien abductees are out there that were actually violated by Karen Smith, and we really need to, and since it's all the truth, we do need to get this out there. I also want to say that in order to support the fine work of Nick Redding and the good people at Men's Rights Edmonton, that ABFM will be hosting this month during January an Accuse-a-thon for all of you who feel like that Karen Smith may have something to do, whether, and you know, if you read Courage to Heal, you know that if you think you might remember something, then it actually happened.
Oh, yeah.
So if you think you possibly remember being violated sexually by Karen Smith, you were. And so I want to offer that support to you right now and let you know that we will be having categories for most creative accusation, for the most number of victims, and for the highest profile of the accused. So if you accuse the university dean of raping you or raping a bunch of other people, then you might end up with a free ABFM t-shirt. And we just want to put that out there because we know that once it's reported, it's true. And we're really doing some good rape prevention work by having this Accuse-a-thon.
Yep, that's what we're about, is preventing further rapes by serial rapist Karen Smith.
There you go. By, you know, through anonymous accusations.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the best way to do it.
The sort of patriarchal system of justice where you have, you know, an accused and an accuser, and they each know who the other is, and the accused knows what the accusation is, and there's evidence, there's an inquiry, there's, you know, a due process of law that is inefficient and arbitrary. I think arbitrary is an adjective used by a professor of law, not specifically addressing the subject of rape, but addressing criminal prosecution of criminals when they're female. And I think that it would just be arbitrary to have due process rather than simply treat the accusation as a conviction, which, as you all know, it should be.
Well, and come on, let's be real about it. The Bill of Rights in the United States, I know it's you have a different system, but it's similar in Canada. There are, you know, elements of due process. These things are what, 200-300 years old. Most of it based on the Magna Carta, which is a tremendously older and more patriarchal document. I think it's time we got our legal system flexible and adapted to postmodern culture. And I think this is what Occidental is attempting to do here by giving the weight of accusation the same weight as conviction. And by pulling these young men, and come on, we know, it's young men. It's all young men. Women do not sexually assault anybody. That accusation is false. The idea that women make false accusations is also false. Everything bad about women is false. But we need to catch this thing up, and I think apply this wonderful enlightenment from gender studies that has just really, really changed and shaken up the way we understand the world, and start applying it to real life situations. And all of us here want to do our part, and I want to appeal to you out there, do your part. Go to Simon Fraser, or not Simon Fraser, Occidental, Simon Fraser soon to be, but go to Occidental and fill out a rape allegation. I'm sure you can think of a victim. I'm sure you can think of a perpetrator. There's a faculty list on their website. Pick somebody from humanities and go for it. But it's time that we did our part, and I'm tired of being inactive about this.
Well, the other thing to note is that although you're correct that that only men commit sexual assault and rape, and we have advocated in this hangout to file accusations against Karen Smith of Sexual Assault Services of Edmonton, clearly that would be a mistake if she were not in fact a young man, thus guilty.
You know,
True.
I don't want to put you on the spot. We're not going to confuse Karen Smith with Karen Straughan. They're two different people, allegedly. But look, Girl writes what I hate to put you on the spot, but I mean, in just a few intimate moments before we went live with this program, you did share something with us that I think warrants being shared with others. And if you wouldn't mind, could you just let people know what happened to you?
Oh, yeah. It's very difficult to talk about. This is a very, very, very difficult memory to deal with. You know, when Karen Smith anally raped me with a giant purple dildo with the word patriarchy carved onto the side, and with every thrust she screamed, "Misandry don't reel, misandry don't reel." I have nightmares every night, and all I hear when I wake up is her voice screaming, "Misandry don't reel." It just don't reel. So, yeah, I just if just excuse me for a moment. I need to.
Oh, that's all right, Karen. Don't worry. You don't have to speak anymore. Folks, look, this is the legacy of what happens when we allow anal rape with purple dildos and engravings on the side. Uh, it's bad enough that you were violated in that way, but to be subjected to misandry don't reel repeatedly with every thrust, it's somewhat stimulating.
Is it wrong that I'm turned on right now?
I don't, no, I don't think so. John, what's your take on it?
Well, I obviously I had the details wrong. I thought that it was a rather than a dildo, I thought it was a purple carving of Jessica Valenti with the word patriarchy carved into the side of it. But
Oh my God, that would have been even worse. Even worse.
and just for the record, I am still of the opinion that Jessica Valenti still wants women to be killed.
Well, I think actually they're getting serious about things for the first time this morning. I think actually, if women are not victimized, feminists get more angry, right? Like it seems like that the freer women are, the safer they are, you know the less domestic violence against women there is, like the angrier feminists seem to get. So yeah, you could be right. You could be right about that.
I got to take one point of contention, though, is while I do agree with John to some extent that feminists want women to be harmed or injured, I don't necessarily think that they want them to be killed, because women who are killed can't complain near as effectively as women who are just raped or injured or domestically battered. They make poster children, and once they're in a coffin, they've lost their utility to feminists in that way. So,
well, I think they still make good martyrs.
They do. They do. And I mean, like in a way, if especially if she's young and pretty and she died way too soon and in a very, very sort of titillating way, there's a lot of currency, political currency, that extends for a long time afterwards. So after the, yeah. So there you go.
Now, I do want to bring up one thing while we're still talking about the Occidental reporting form, the anonymizing sexual assault reporting and rape reporting form at Occidental. I wrote a comment about this when I read about it on Huffington Post, saying something to the effect of "Good, go forward in FTSU," and a certain thinker, visionary, and priest, I believe, or maybe biology professor or something like that, wrote on his blog. I think it was an individual named PZ Pajamas or Myers, I think, and saying what an awful person I was. And while that comment saddened me and made me giggle, in his mention of me and dragging up old business, what he did is reminded me that there is still a challenge unanswered issued by me towards him, which was issued originally on July 17th of 2012, which is 533 days ago, or 1 year, 5 months, and 15 days, since I issued a challenge to Mr. P.Z. Myers, or Professor or Archbishop Myers. I'm not sure what title he's using these days. And I will simply reiterate that challenge once again. As soon as I scroll to where I have it posted, which I'll have just in 2 seconds here. I said to PZ Myers, please address the substance of anything that I've written in my last 100 articles on the site of Voice for Men in a manner befitting an academic celebrity and intellectual. Show me where I'm wrong, change my opinion, and do it without recourse to the usual tactics of censure, identity politics, and attempted shaming tactics. I swear my opinion is readily changeable, provided a strong reasoned argument can be made. Do it like a grown-up. That's my challenge to PZ. Act like a man for a complete full article. And if he can do that, absent of his usual puerile drivel, I will respond with a permanent article on A Voice for Men announcing to the entire world that he changed my mind. So that's simply a reiteration of a standing challenge, which I like to remind him of every single time he mentions my name without addressing it. And as of today, it is 1 year, 5 months, and 15 days since that challenge, and he's tapped on my door half a dozen times since then, never once mentioning that challenge. I'm sure it's simply slipping his memory, or he's forgotten about it, which is why I like to remind him, because I'm helpful like that. I'm sure it's not because he's an intellectual weakling or a coward. I'm sure that's not the reason.
No, of course not. I think you said it all when you said academic celebrity.
That's right.
That is, and given his crowd, along the same lines, one of the things I really would, in all seriousness, like to see in 2014 is a more concerted effort from the remaining sane atheist skeptic community to retake their movement and to make it what it used to be and what it had the potential for becoming, because it really did have enormous potential as a movement in our culture that would even eventually address some of the problems that we try to address out of A Voice for Men. A really good thing, and it seems like, and I know I'll probably get some hate mail for this, but it seems like that with a few exceptions, that most of the people speaking in the atheist community have basically just sat down with their thumbs up their butt as a rational, objectively based movement was commandeered by a bunch of ideological zealots, and they have simply just let them take over. It's an affront when it happens in any area of life, but to imagine this happening in a community that is based on using logic and rational deduction, that they have just stepped aside as zealots have taken over their movement. I hope some in that community stand up more this year and start doing something about the insanity that's poisoned them.
Well, I think too. I mean, like some of the people who had been considered leaders, like Matt Dillahunty and Aaron Raw, they happen to be married to feminists, and they have. I mean, the thing with Matt Dillahunty and Atheism Plus, where he, created an alt account, he went onto the forum, I think he asked why a specific user had been banned. Just sort of why was he treated so poorly and why was he banned? And he got himself banned for asking that. And he was just like, I was trying to prove that you guys were decent, right, and would treat a newcomer decently, but he still supports them. He still supports that, and it's just like,
it's very sad.
I just can't, like Aaron Raw just earlier, maybe a month, 2 months ago, he gave a speech where he said that there is a word for being against sexism, and that word is feminism. And to be an anti-sexist is that feminist. That's what that means. And I'm just like,
it's embarrassing. I'm embarrassed for him to have heard that he said anything so completely facile.
And I'm embarrassed that there wasn't just an immediate outcry from the whole community demanding to know what the fuck are you talking about.
Well, I think you still have Thunderfoot there. You still have him speaking out. I mean, he still is, I wouldn't consider him anti-feminist, because whenever he critiques these people, he puts feminist in quotes, right? Because he seems to think that there's a true feminism that is not the feminism of Rebecca Watson and Amy Roth and all of these other people. And
you think it's that, or do you think he's playing it safe?
Well, he may be playing it safe, but I think maybe he needs to experience a little bit more feminism in order to realize, a fault. They really are. There's very few. There's very, very few women who call themselves feminists, or men who call themselves feminists, who are not like that.
Well, right? Let's point to a couple of the actual names. There are feminists who, while I don't necessarily agree with their position, at least argue honestly based on their own point of view. At least are intellectually honest with themselves, even admitting that some people have blindness to certain issues. And those feminists, the major academic ones who've done that and still use the label feminist to describe themselves, have been unceremoniously and quite sadistically thrown under the bus of mainstream feminism and discarded and shunted aside. And I'm talking about Naomi Wolf and Camille Paglia, who are both renegades to feminism. I mean, the mainstream of the movement does everything they can to silence and marginalize those voices because they don't toe the squirrely-brained, we're all victims of everything all the time party line, the victim feminism.
Well, and okay, same thing happened to Summers, too.
What did Naomi Wolf do to get the boot?
I think she upset Jacqueline Friedman.
Yeah, I think she challenged Friedman on like basically online mobbing people simply for disagreeing or questioning the doctrine. But yeah, actually,
booted.
Yeah, you just don't. It's an obedience cult, among other things.
Well, and she also, if I recall, she's taking the position that anonymity for rape accusers is not necessary anymore, or it sends the wrong message to women who've been victims of rape.
Well, either you have to have anonymity for the accuser and the victim, or you have anonymity for neither one. You cannot have it one-sided. Because then you don't...
That brings up a question for both of you. Now, my gut reaction when John said, well, you can't have anonymity for one without the other, or a lack of it for both. My first reaction, well, of course you can. That's exactly what we do under feminist governance. But is this, let me just ask you, because, I see these things going way back, even pre-feminist being treated this way, and we also have the sort of SOCON traditionalists aspect of protect the little lady and get out the pitchforks and torches to go after whoever's been accused. Accused rapists have been being murdered, lynched, whatever, for ages, and it all predates feminism. Feminism seems to exploit that. But are we taking a chance at misrepresenting the problem by just pointing the finger at feminism with how we handle due process for rape allegations?
Well, we are actually we're not being unfair in blaming feminism, because it's feminist jurisprudence that has entrenched all of these. It's made all of those things sort of quasi valid, right? Like anonymity for for the accuser, that's relatively new. Not needing corroboration, right? That's relatively new. These are things that just only happened over the last 40 years or so, right? Not allowing an accuser's sexual history to be included, to the point where I was reading about one case where it was in the early 80s. Young white woman, single woman, who was living with her black boyfriend. And the only evidence, the only physical evidence that existed was a pubic hair from a black man that was found on her cervix. And the jury was not allowed to hear that she was actually living with and having regular sex with a black man, because the judge deemed that she would be subjected to public embarrassment, because at the time interracial dating really wasn't a thing. At the time it was frowned on. At the time cohabitating wasn't really a thing that was acceptable. And she lied on the stand and said she lived with her mother, and the defense was not allowed to challenge her on that because it would reveal the fact that she was living with, it was part of her sexual history that she was living in sin with a black man, right?
But
So
it's absolutely germane. But it is a point central and germane to the defense.
well, yeah, and it was excluded.
It was excluded, and
even after she perjured herself because of rape shield laws.
Okay,
right.
John, what do you think? Are we being completely open-minded and encompassing if we are just pointing the finger at feminism for this problem?
In terms of causality, no. I mean, it does pre-exist what we call modern feminism. However, it has been the lobbying and the activism of academic and moneyed feminists who have entrenched this into law, who have created this grotesque double standard. And I was thinking of a couple of other double standards, all of which are related to feminism. One is the rape shield laws, where an accuser is anonymous but the accused is public. You also have the concept, fairly recent, that if two people are drunk and have sex, the male is the rapist and the female is the rape victim. That's another double standard. Why? I mean, if drunken sex is rape, something I don't think is correct anyway, but let's just admit that part is correct. Why is it directional in one direction? Like, why isn't the male the victim? Do men not also have diminished decision-making power under the influence of alcohol? And another double standard is that if women are no longer able to make a decision responsibly as an adult while drunk, we also need to then exempt them from the crime of driving while drunk, because that is another decision you make while drunk. So if women are exempted from being able to make a decision or being held accountable for their actions while drunk, well, we might as well be consistent across the board of all the activities that you can't do drunk: having sex, driving a car, etc. We also have the Swedish model, or I call it the feminist model for prostitution, in which a female sex service provider is not committing a criminal act in exchanging money for sex, but the consumer of that service is committing a criminal act by paying for it. That's like saying a drug dealer is not committing a crime by selling your kid heroin, but your kid is committing a crime for buying heroin in the same transaction. It is all of these double standards are psychotic, and you know, we dance around it. We say, well, how can you have it one way and not the other? What it is psychosis. You can't have two people committing the same action and one of them's committing a crime and the other one's not.
Well, yeah, I tend to agree with you. I mean, certainly there's no arguing all those valid points. I look back in history, though, would find that we've had really excessive psychotic rape hysteria for a long time, going back to Scottsboro boys and beyond that, with black men being lynched for whistling at a white woman on the street, or for allegedly whistling at a white woman on the street. And I know that there's been an insanity in this culture about rape for a long, long time that predates feminism, but I do tend to agree with you that what we got from feminism was taking a problem like rape hysteria and turning it into an absolute cancer, rather than feminism fulfilling its promise to be a positive for society, to balance things between the sexes. Of course, what they did was the exact opposite. They created an even more rigged game, and we're back to basically high-tech lynchings when it comes to rape, with rape shield laws and with this goddamn forum on Occidental. We're laughing and joking about it, but the fact of the matter is that we've got a significantly sized major university out there inviting people to make any kind of accusation they want, and promising whoever reports on that forum that they're going to drag whoever they accused into their office and harass them based on the accusation. That's right there on the forum. I've read it myself. I don't give traditionalists, SOCONs, anywhere near a pass on rape hysteria, because I think they're responsible for a lot of it. But when I look at the really, really egregious insanities that are going on around rape right now, I don't see it coming from anywhere near as badly as it does from feminists. So,
well, one of the things too that gets me about that whole Occidental thing is that they claim that they will not use it, like nobody's going to be punished or whatever, right, by being named on one of these anonymous forms. But they have to realize that if that's the case, that form is a huge legal liability for them, for the college, right? Because if somebody is named on that form and then they go on to rape someone else and the college had a chance to do something and did not, right, they're going to have a lawsuit on their hand. Yeah, you know, like they're going to have to use it in a way that they say they're not intending to use it in order to keep their asses clean, because otherwise they're just, I mean, like, how can they not see that?
Well, I think they probably feel protected from any consequences, like most of these ideologues do. I don't think they ever imagine that anything that they do is going to result in a real problem for them, and it's not like that thought is completely irrational.
Well, it's not like they are immune to anything, because they're under investigation right now for violating the Clery Act, right? For not reporting the sexual assaults that had been occurring, that had been reported to them.
Yeah, right? the form that we're talking about is, let's be clear, it's a panic. They panicked and slapped this form up as fast as they could using a Google document and, you know, shared on Google Drive. That's all it is.
Yeah.
So it probably never went past their legal team. But addressing what they say about the form, that, oh, we're only going to use it for administrative data gathering, we're not going to, you know, pursue anybody or harass a student or any kind of punitive administrative procedure against a student. Occidental is in Los Angeles, which is in California, which is in the United States, unless I'm terribly mistaken. And which
that's debatable.
Yeah, well,
to some of us,
this happens to be the same country in which your federal government said, oh, yes, yes, we're illegally wiretapping, but we're only going to look at the conversations of criminals and terrorists, not the general public. We're not going to wiretap the good people, only the bad people. Does anybody remember that when they said that?
That's how smart our government is.
I thought that went down the memory hole.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. They don't save that stuff. Hey, moving on for a second, I just want to pose a question, and if anybody wants to avoid this for lack of comfort, I certainly understand, but I got to just say, I'm curious. What the fuck happened to Bill Price? And I'm going to say it, and I don't care, it'll piss him off, but what do I care? Bill married a feminist. It didn't come out until the Daily Beast article, and he offered up what I just thought was so fucking laughable. Well, I didn't tell anybody I wasn't married to a feminist, okay, yeah, which is technically true. He didn't tell anybody he wasn't married, but it turns out he's married to a diehard feminist. Right during the Daily Beast thing, he comes out with a absolutely shameless bullshit hit piece on me, goes after us, all this stuff, and then now he hasn't been seen for 3 weeks on his own website. No articles, no nothing since 12/7. He has not published a single thing on that website. So I wonder if Bill's been given his marching orders to quit that terrible writing.
Maybe he's buried in the backyard.
Possibly.
Maybe we should go over to his house with a pry bar and get him out of the cage in the basement.
Well, and I don't, I'm laughing, but I certainly wouldn't want anything bad to happen to Bill. But I find this sort of mysterious disappearance a little bit intriguing, and I wonder.
He didn't make any announcement that he's going on vacation or anything like that?
Not that I could find. He usually, I've read the site for years, less in recent times for obvious reasons, but usually he does say when he's going to be out or when things are going to be slow. He's usually pretty meticulous about communicating with his readers about what's going on at the Spearhead. But he's got an article up on December 7th that says we shouldn't get hung up on the 50s, and then not a peep out of him since then. And I don't know if he's pulling an Elvis or if he's actually having problems, which I hope he's not. I
hope he's okay.
I hope he's not having health problems or something like that. And
but I find the sequence of events intriguing. That
what was the date that he wrote the hit piece on you?
That was October the 18th.
Okay, still somewhat recent.
Yeah, and within 2 months he just sort of poof disappears. But the fact that he sort of let somebody else tell the world that he had married a feminist, and what I think Todd Kelly described in his hit piece on you, John, and on the movement, superstar that you are. Superstar. But what he described, Todd Kelly just defined her as a staunch feminist, if I remember the correct adjective.
And Todd Kelly did take a couple of swipes at me, but I was, and I hope he's watching this, I was amazed and quite delighted that the couple of punches that he did throw at me, rhetorically speaking, were mild. I mean, I was expecting a much rougher treatment than that. It was only towards the end of the article that he ever sort of, threw doubt on a couple of different things. For most of the body of the thing, he was calling me the new Jesus or something.
Well, I think he was trying to create some disharmony between people in more prominent positions in this movement. It worked out real well for you, Todd.
I just found it bizarre that he was describing Bill Price as the moderate voice, because I don't spend a whole lot of time at the Spearhead anymore, but I used to read a lot of their stuff, and that was some hard-ass shit a few years ago. I mean, like, they were hardcore. And to have him be portrayed as a moderate, like, I hope he's not. I hope he's not going soft, right? I suspect he is, right? Just I suspect he's going to pull an Aaron Raw or a Matt Dillahunty any moment. But
well, maybe he'll come back incarnated as something else. This will be really interesting. It'll be the return of Bill. Let's see what happens.
You know, I wish I hate the idea of people who are that hardcore going moderate, going squishy. Yeah.
Well, at any rate, Bill, we hope you're okay, and if you can get permission to come out and play again, we'd like to see your articles popping up at the Spearhead.
And like I'd just like to know that he's okay, that he didn't get in a car accident or something, and you know that he's still alive out there. You know,
you would thought we would have heard about that by now. If something had happened. I mean, Hugo Schweitzer gets in a car accident, but of course Hugo Schweitzer can't wait.
He is a car accident.
Yes, he's a train wreck, and he can't wait to tell people about his most recent fuck up. Was this the fuck up of the year for 2013? Schweitzer, his implosion, his jerking off on camera, having a sexting affair with a porn star behind his wife's back. Eventually, he OD'd on his psych meds and hurt somebody in an accident. Now he's facing serious time. I can't think of a feminist that fucked up more than that.
No, because remember, Schweitzer had a long history of admitting to fucking his students and gaming feminists by pretending to be a feminist.
And passing off his own child as somebody else's.
Oh, yeah, I mean, like, he's got this long history, so whatever idiotic shenanigans he's got up to recently is just like another notch in his belt. It's not like he's changed his character in everybody's eyes. He's the same fucking clown.
I don't get how he ever had any credibility.
Well, because he's an academic pseudo-celebrity and a big-name feminist, and that's all you need.
I think there was enough, like, just with airing his dirty laundry, but then there was, like, a degree of self-flagellation involved in that. I'm one of those bad men, but I'm trying to be good. I'm trying to be a good feminist, but, you know, even though I'm a horrible man. And yeah.
Well, I may have to go that direction myself. I want to share with you guys. We've had a lot of people commenting here. Quite a robust little crowd has showed up, and somebody named Pie Flavor has just said, "I wish Elam, for all he has done, the MRM, would be a bit more moderate. I have deep respect for him, but when he goes flinging shit at feminists and general populace, I cry inside."
Well,
one of you please talk for a moment.
Yeah, what's the name of that
cry
comment?
Inside.
Pie Flavor.
Pie Flavor? I would suggest that you get yourself a tissue and cry
Life
some
is
more.
hard. Life is hard. Get a helmet. It's...
Yeah.
Like, why?
Actually, let's address this. Let's. I mean, mocking of Pie Fly or Pie Flavor, whatever they're called, aside, this is sort of a recurring theme, isn't it?
Oh, God.
I agree with what you're saying, and I agree that these issues are real. If only you weren't such a bunch of assholes, or if only you were nicer. Couldn't you say it nicer?
Because we were paying so much attention to the last 40 fucking years of guys that were talking nice about these issues. We really listened to them, and then, you know, somebody speaks up a little louder. They say, "Oh, I was all ready to be your friend, and then you got mean."
Yeah.
Sorry, Pie Flavor. Get a tennis shoe.
Yeah, go get a tissue. a Kleenex for pie flavor.
Oh,
The
man,
problems, but I mean, like, these problems, although we are sort of, I guess, some of the most prominent people, or at least AVFM is probably the most prominent platform talking about this, these are not issues that we just started talking about. These are issues that have been talked about for 3, 4 generations, maybe 5 generations, but they've been talked about using academic language, using very polite language, using sort of like I don't mean to offend, but la la la, and then they'll go into statistics using very fact-based, non-emotional language, and talked about it and talked about it and talked about it and talked about it, and every once in a while someone with influence or someone with a voice or a platform will turn around and say, yes, I see you have a point. Oh, look, shiny stuff. Pass the cheese-colored wacky fries. And, like, someone will dangle a little piece of tinfoil and, whoa, there goes their attention. You know? And it did not happen until men's rights activists, and we like to now use the term men's human rights activists because it's more clear, began to get a little bit nasty, get a little bit rude and in people's faces. And I wish we could say we were the first to do it, but I'm going to have to give that honor to a gentleman named Harry, who all of us know.
Well, and with all respect to Harry, because he is the modern role model for this, and he got the ball rolling, especially on the internet. Big kudos to Harry for everything he's done. But like you said, John, this stuff has gone back for 100 years. Anybody get a chance, just do a Google on Robert St. Estephe, A Voice for Men. Look for the article setting the record straight about the men's rights movement, and you will get, he's gone in recently and added a bunch of images. It's a 11,000-word article, meticulously referenced, with the long and illustrious history of people attempting men's rights movements in the Western culture, and all of which, though, have eventually fizzled out because men are controlled by shame. Yeah. And by vaginas. You know, I think this ties directly into the atheist community, where you had all these great people, and a lot of them very, very cutting-edge thinkers that were absolutely pounding their fist about religion and saying, I'm not going to have my children subjected to this way of living and to being forced into this mold by religious ideologues and by fantasy that people lived about God and other things. And they were just absolutely staunch, scientifically based, fact-based, empiricism. All this must be a part of the picture, and the moment somebody waved a vagina under their nose, it all went to shit. It is just amazing.
Let's talk a little bit about male public identity, because this really ties into it. Is everybody who is normally socialized, everybody who's mentally healthy and a member of whatever local society they're in, I'm a part of Vancouver, and Karen's a part of Edmonton, and you're a part of some undisclosed location in Texas.
I'm in Houston, fuck 'em.
Yeah. And so everybody is a member of their own community, and being a member of your community, in order to be functional and work within that community and get along with people, you have a public identity. That is, Karen is the mother of X, Y, and Z kids, works at such and such a place, is married to or lives with whoever, and is a good person to be a friend of, or a good person to be served by at a business, and so on. That's your public identity. And for men, public identity is conferred by the group consensus, typically by female consensus. Are you of positive utility to a consensus of your peers who are women? That becomes a man's public identity. And if you aren't towing the party line, if you aren't doing what pleases the women around you, following the correct model of behavior and doing the right things and saying the right things, well then what is in jeopardy is your public identity, because that identity for most men is controlled by consensus. And so you go against feminism in, say, the atheist community, and then you have a collection of female feminists in that community who decide you're no longer a good guy, you're a bad guy. Not because you did anything objectionable, but now you're, instead of interesting, you're creepy. And instead of, attractive, you're rapey. All because of this consensus conferral of public identity. Now, your private identity doesn't change. It's like you're always the same guy, you have the same job, you do the same thing, it's the same education and same personality. But now, instead of this consensus which says, oh yes, this is the guy towing the party line, he does the right things, he says the right things, he knows his place in the pecking order. Well, now he doesn't know his place. He's getting ideas above his station. He's starting to think that he has an identity that we don't control.
Well, one of the things too is one of the reasons I think that they're so vicious, in sort of the things that they do to like people like say Justin Vakula, right?
Yeah.
That he he ends up having to step down from an appointed position on the board of a major organization, right?
Yeah.
A friend of ours in Canada here had an anonymous tip phoned into the police that he was stockpiling weapons and munitions, right? And like you get these hyper vicious attacks because they realize that this person has demonstrated that they can't be controlled by shame. We can't just shame him, and swat his nose, right, and get him to behave. We have to go freaking hard ass on him, and so that's what they do. They go completely. They dogpile people, on the internet. They freaking viciously. They make false accusations against them. They do all of these because they can't control them by shame anymore.
Let me bring up something about the Bacula matter that I think is, or Bacula, however we pronounce it, that I think is particularly germane and how effective this stuff is. And again, probably upset a couple of people here. He came to us after we donated to his trip to Ireland and sent him packing with our blessings and our support. He came back and had a conference with Dean and I after he got back and after he drew some heat, which, by the way, he never did fully fulfill his obligations to us under his Kickstarter to do the promotional work for ABFM. He was supposed to do 2 commercials for us there, and he didn't. He did 1, and then he comes back and seeks a meeting with Dean and I, in which he says, "Please don't mention me on your website anymore." Doesn't even want his name out there talked about, even though he's a member of the very community that we cover when we're looking at these issues. And he was, to some degree, even with all the good stuff that he's done, and he's done some great stuff, he was cowed by them.
You look at it, they were phoning his parents. They were sending mail to his parents, right? They had they publicized his parents' contact information, right, to get people to send emails, send mail, and phone them to tell them what a horrible son they'd raised, what a horrible misogynist they'd raised, and they I strongly encourage everyone to contact anywhere where he might actually find employment. I think he's a writer, so all the newspapers in the area, everything, and warn them not to hire this guy. I mean, like, they seriously went hardcore doxing and blacklisting, and then had him have to resign his position almost immediately after he was appointed. I mean, it is just absolutely, like, they went freaking berserk on him, right? Well, so I don't blame him for saying I just want to
crawl in a hole and hide for a while. Yeah, I don't blame him either. But what's most amazing to me, and this continues to amaze me, is that the radical feminists in the atheist community who did this brag about it.
Oh yeah.
They're public about it. Like,
Yeah.
look what we did. We look at our muscles. As if in doing this, they didn't portray themselves, reveal that they have no ethical or moral compass whatsoever. They are limited by nothing but imagination.
Well,
they're not people with a decent limit on what they will do or say.
Oh, you know what the most insane irony of that whole situation is I think that the disagreement that what he did that they felt needed to be punished so badly was like he criticized Surly Amy Roth, and then he used a photo of one of her pieces of jewelry in the blog post, and she sent him a DMCA claim demanding that he take it down. And when you file a counterclaim, right, you are giving your personal contact info to the person who filed the claim, and then that person, in order to, they have to take some form of legal action within a couple of weeks or something like that, at least on YouTube, right? They have to follow up. If they don't follow up, the image stays up. The claim is considered null. And they accused him of filing if I might be confused about how it all went down, but they accused him of filing the counterclaim as that it was an attempt to get her contact info. That's the only reason he filed a counterclaim, was because he wanted her contact info so he could harass her, right? Or dox her. And then he said, I don't have to dox her. I don't have to do this to get her contact info. And he posted a link to, I think, her Zazzle store or whatever, or her own website where she advertises her jewelry, and all of her contact info was there, posted there by her. So he posts this link and says, I don't have to, and they considered that doxing. Oh my God, you just doxed Amy, right? And then
you linked to her website. Oh my God!
Yeah, I know. So posting that link was considered doxing and inviting other people to harass her. And then, so what do? They dox him and harass him and his family and his potential employers.
Yeah, but Karen, let me interject something here. And I hate to go old schooled about this, but I'm going to. And it plays exactly in with what John was talking about men getting their sense of value, worth, and identity from group consensus, particularly female consensus. That is the problem. That is the real problem. And in my mind, at least the way I'm thinking about it, the only way to find a solution to that is to rebel against it. Because here's what I see happening. Men definitely will tell you. I think if you ask most any man, I get my identity and my worth from myself. I do based on my own actions, my own values. I don't sacrifice, my values for group consensus. I'm an independent, strong person, true to my identity as a human being. And the first time that somebody waves vaginal disapproval at them, they fold like a cheap suit. And while, again, I don't have anything against Bacula for what he did, it is part of the problem. It is part of the problem. We had a society that was treated African Americans, and still does in some ways, very egregiously for a long time. And the first people to start speaking up about that were even considered pariah in their own communities for speaking up about it. And the same thing has happened in almost every social movement that I can think of. And what it takes is people that don't leave their values at the door when it becomes a little bit rough. I've heard John say 100 times, life's rough, wear a helmet, and I've seen him follow through and live that way and not just cave. I know this stuff is tough. I know it's rough. But every time we give in to this kind of abuse, every time any of us gives in to this kind of treatment, we enable more of it against somebody else. And every time we stand against it and fight back and refuse to take it, we give somebody else permission to stand up too. So while I certainly don't, quote unquote, blame Justin for coming to us and saying, please don't mention me on your website, at the same time, I'm going to call a spade a spade. That's part of the problem. is that we do need people with spines out here that are going to stand up to this kind of bullshit and simply not take it. And the end of lecture.
Well, I mean, this almost segues almost directly into the article that I wrote yesterday that I think Dean is in the midst of publishing now, talking about the ganging, the mobbing, the online mobbing that happens from within that dysfunctional community that we're talking about. And it demonstrates sort of this no ethical compass on the part of people who participate in such mobbing and accusation and blacklisting. Shouldn't we have a higher standard of behavior for public intellectuals or public figures in any social movement? Shouldn't there be like some accountability? You can't just phone somebody's business and call and tell their employer that they're XYZ kind of criminal or villain or evil whatever without A, it being true, or B, finding yourself in a courtroom defending yourself.
Well, I agree we should have the standards. I think that some of us do, but getting people to comply with that, I mean, especially when they're ideologically driven and they have, people like Jacqueline Friedman and all those of that ilk, they have no values whatsoever, and it's just hard to enforce that.
I don't know. Like, I think what needs to happen really is some lawsuits, right? And that's starting to happen now in colleges in the U.S. For several universities and colleges are being sued right now by men who claim that they were wrongly expelled, right? And so, I mean, like, it's starting to happen. I know that NCFM, the National Coalition for Men, does a lot. They file a lot of lawsuits. They've done that, and they've gotten some results. And they sometimes will just write a very legal, easy letter and get a corporation to change their behavior. I think they did that with one of the airlines that was that was making men who were sitting next to unaccompanied minors move to a different seat, and NCFM sent them a letter saying, you realize that you are in violation of UNRRA or whatever act it is by doing that, right?
UNRRA, yeah.
So, and they actually sent back a letter saying, thank you for bringing that to our attention because we didn't realize, right, that we were opening ourselves up to a lawsuit. So, there are a lot of things like that are going on, and I think NCFM is largely sort of an unsung hero in this whole battle because they aren't really high profile, right? They're not high profile like a Voice for Men, but they do get a lot of stuff done, and they often get it done just as I said, just by filing a lawsuit or writing a letter. And I think they sent one to a domestic violence service in Maryland recently where they are charging, they give free batterer treatment sessions to men who are accused of domestic violence, but if women need batterer treatment and therapy and all of that, they have to pay $20 a session, right? And so they sent a letter saying that you are actually discriminating against women and charging them for a service that you provide free to men, and you are in particular discriminating against lesbian women. So
discrimination's discrimination.
Yeah, well, I mean, they frame it in such a way as sure, the underlying discrimination there is against men. It's the assumption that only men are batterers, and that a female batterer is such an anomaly that we just won't provide free services for that because it's never going to get used anyway, right? But you have to frame it in such a way that they are actually discriminating against women in order to get anything done. So
Okay. Well, look, we're close to, I think, probably a good point to close this up. But let me pass it to you guys to take turns. I'm curious about each of you individually, what your plans are for 2014, how much shit you're going to fuck up, how you're going to fuck it up, to what degree you're going to fuck it up, whether it's going to be slash and burn, fuck it up, or just annoying, aggravating, good old MHRA stuff, fuck it up. But for what are your plans for the year? John?
Well, I think the academic feminist community in the local universities around Vancouver are going to have an interesting year, and I will be.
You're such a tease.
Yeah, well, you know, academic feminists, particularly Simon Fraser and UBC, those of them who are not aware of A Voice for Men or me will, by the end of the year, be aware of A Voice for Men and me. That's all I'm going to say for now. This is a project that I've been planning for a couple of weeks. A friend of mine is also going to be participating. We're going to do a little fundraiser because this is actually some serious activism that we're going to go and do, and we're going to probably change some things on the campuses of those universities. I don't know what the changes are going to be, but they will be significant. There's also going to be an upcoming podcast or maybe radio show coming out of Vancouver again with me on it and a few other people. Nobody else has talked about this yet, so Paul and Karen are both finding out for the first time, as well as anybody watching. And that's all I can say for now. I do have a few other things planned, but not fleshed out enough to discuss at this point.
Thank you. Karen, Girl Writes What? What about your 2014?
Oh, well, I suppose I should get on writing that speech that I have to give in Toronto on the 24th. Don't forget, be there or be square. Ryerson University. Ryerson being an epic choice since they amended their charter preemptively so that they specifically so they could deny funding to a proposed men's center on that campus. So excellent choice of venues, and I'll be doing that for Cafe. And then in February, I'm not going to announce it yet, but there might be something awesome going on in February around the 24th as well. And that'll be another speaking engagement, and so I'll announce that once it's firmed up. And then there's Detroit. Detroit's going to be awesome. And as far as I'm just like, I guess.
Well, why don't you tell people that don't know what's awesome about Detroit?
That we're all going to be there. You, me, Aaron Pitsey, Warren Farrell, Tom
John
Golden,
the other.
oh my God,
Oh,
all
yeah.
of us.
Actually, I do want to mention Detroit because I got an email a couple of days ago about Detroit. Some of the people watching this may remember an individual named Krista Heflin. She sometimes uses the name Krista Milburn, but most often she uses the name Feminist Divine. Well, one of her followers, I don't know which one. I initially thought it was her just using an alternate email because every time she emails me, I just block her because I don't care to hear from her. I got an email from somebody claiming to be a follower of the Feminist Divine person, saying, "I wonder if you will dare to show up in Detroit because we will be there." We, meaning multiple people, and it is over for you. That directed at me. It is over for me, Paul. Did you know that?
Well, yeah, and I'm going to add to that. In that list, John the Other will also be in Detroit with us as a very visible part of this conference. We're still working on how exactly we're going to plug John in. We just know that we're going to. So if you want to see the Notorious JTO get offed in Detroit, you're going to have to come there and buy a front row ticket to watch it go down live and in person, because it won't be the same on video.
Yeah, I will have a T-shirt with a bullseye painted on it.
No using me as a human shield.
Hey, what about equality?
I know you're going to try, but you know.
Well, anyway, go ahead.
No, and just the other things that I'm hoping to get done here, you know, like Men's Rights Edmonton is hopefully going to have a nice, big, huge expose on a specific case. They're doing a lot of research on it right now and getting documents and stuff. So that should be up early in this year, and just, you know, just a lot of different stuff going on. I don't even know if I'm going to have time to start writing that book that I've been supposed to be writing for a long time.
I've got one of those too. I've been working for a year with Dr. T on a book, and we're 3/4 of the way through, and life keeps happening, busyness keeps happening, and excuses keep happening.
You all saw what that house looks like. That, you know, you all watched that video that I uploaded of my money pit of a house that is actually now in our possession, which is nice. Some holdover of the coverture laws kind of put the kibosh on that for a while, and my boyfriend's mother, who is the only owner of the house, or was, she discovered that she couldn't sell the house because her husband, who is in a nursing home, has dower rights. He has a dower interest in it, and that just means that it's not a financial thing. It just means he has the right to live in it if he chooses, and she can't sell it without his permission, and he's mentally incompetent and couldn't give permission, and she only has power of attorney and not guardianship, so she didn't have the authority to waive his right to live in the property. So it was just a huge legal complication, and all of that derives from laws that were designed to protect women when they couldn't hold property during marriage. And then at some point, instead of getting rid of them, at some point they just made them gender neutral.
Well, I will concede your excuses for not finishing your book are better than my excuses. I wish I'd never asked now.
Oh my God! And that house. Oh, what a nightmare! What a nightmare.
For my 2014, we're going to start out very soon. One announcement coming today. We believe this very day, AVFM forums will be new and upgraded to a pretty slick, polished, new high-dollar forum. So we'll be making an announcement about that. Server administrator David King and Al Martin, also known as the man on the street, our forum administrator, have been working like dogs, taking on the monumental task of upgrading that forum and everything that goes with it. Their work certainly appreciated. We also will have coming up, since Bernard Chapin and the Rocking Mr. E have, I would say, declined to enter and engage in a debate with me in a public venue on the subject of whether or not men's rights is a left-right issue, a subject that's well worth debating, by the way. Our old SOCON nemesis, Keister, has agreed to pick up the gauntlet, and we are working out details now and communicating with him, so we'll be bringing you that debate live in a Google Hangout, as it should be, unedited, so that everybody gets a fair chance. It will be hosted by James Huff. I want to point out to everybody that A Voice for Men is now available on Live 365. You can stream a lot of our best radio broadcasts, video tracks, interviews, things like that, straight to your smartphone 24/7. And we are going to be moving away from Blog Talk Radio and into doing live shows and other events on Live 365. So check that out. You can just Google Live 365, A Voice for Men, take you right to it. We'll have more about that up on the site later. As I have been drumming on repeatedly, we do have the wonderful conference, which I'm totally looking forward to. This is not only going to be a really informative and very historically important event, it's going to be an opportunity for a lot of people. I know one of the great benefits I got out of going to Toronto was that I got to meet Karen. I was sorry I was not able to hook up with John on that trip. He couldn't make it. But meeting Tom Golden, Karen, Attila Benzer, all these people that we do work with online, meeting them in a real live environment, spending time raising a couple of glasses was an absolute blast, and I can't wait to repeat that. I think it's good for all of us to get in and do that. And for that there is a lot of other things coming in 2014. I'm not going to tip my hand to all of them. I'm going to probably play tease worse than John just did with whatever he's going to do to fuck up women's studies throughout the Western world. But I know it's going to be good. As a matter of fact, I know what it is. I can't give you the details, but I can promise you when he raises funds for it, we are going to come to the site and to places like this and ask you to help. What John's going to undertake is an important thing to do, and we're going to get behind it 100%. And with that, I want to wish everybody a happy 2014, a productive 2014, prosperous one, and one where we really just fucked their shit up much better than we did in 2013, and 2013 was pretty good. Anything else before we go, guys?
Nope, that's all.
I think that's it.
Okay, well, again, Happy New Year, everybody, and take the red pill, why don't you?